Hey, do you want to turn your mixes from this to this? I'm sure you do, so send me a message and let's talk. Hey, I'm Ruben Zafra, the Z from A to Z, the second part of the process with Toby. In this video, I'm gonna show you how I mix this song basically using ControlHub and, well, some other plugins, but this is a demo for the ControlHub plugin. In this instance, you can see what it's like. This is the plugin, this is ControlHub from STL Tones. This is the Will Pony expansion. Here you can see all the expansion packs. And basically, this is what you get when you load it up. This is the main vocal sync that I used in the main box. Yeah, basically, this is pre-EQ, very well done EQ. I love it. You can go from any of these three bands. You can go crazy with it, like from basically 20 Hz to 22. And this was around 5-ish. Very musical and very powerful EQ. And after this is my favorite module of here. It's like a preamp thing when you can bump the bass or the treble and push it into the preamp a bit. And also this is my favorite part of it, the drive action. It's a tape and a tube saturation, and you can really do crazy stuff with this. When I'm using ControlHub, I'm using the presets and see which one I like the most. And then I tweak this to my taste. I love it. It really brings out a lot of harmonics and a lot of weight to the sound. And then we get this compression module. This is like a big channel strip. You have BCA fed compressors. This is your 1176 style compressor, and this is like your SSL, or again, very versatile. You can go from basically no attack to 400 milliseconds, which is crazy. The release from basically not release to 2000 milliseconds, which is crazy as well. A sidechain, so if you want to only detect the high end, you can do it. For instance, in the master bus situation where you don't want the kick to overload the compression, you can use this sidechain to make it react only to the snare and above. I usually do a lot. Then there's this mix knob if you want to do it in parallel, and then the input knob, well, and the ratio. You can also set to auto release, a typical compression. Then this is another EQ. It is basically the same as this one, but this is pre everything, and this is post the coloring compression if you want to tame a bit of the unwanted high end that the saturation is giving, or the other way around, the low harmonics or the low content that it brings out. Here is the selection of the slope, 12 dB per octave, 18 dB per octave, and whatnot. It's typical filter. All the way down is a high shelf or low shelf, I'm not really sure. And in the other one, it's the other way around. You can see here, it's like a bell. This is the EQ. The more here, the broader the band is, and then the steeper it is here. Then we go to the effects section. This is a reverb and delay section with a lot of cool options. And then a limiter. Don't really use this module. I don't like it that much. I'm not very familiar with it yet, but I will get to it soon enough. This is the plugin. I love it. What I don't like, I would love to, so you could mix and match some of the parts. Like I would love this compression, but maybe another color or EQ from another preset, but it is what it is, I guess. And also I would love to maybe move these modules around. Maybe I want a color at the end, because I used to do this all the time, process everything and then use the saturation in the end to give it a little bit more juice. So yeah, this is the plugin, and so yeah, this is the song we're working on.
One thing at a time, you'll see it eventually, and it always goes. One thing that we know it, but never do we show it, cause we always go. We told all our friends that we were coming back again. You're making a liar out of me. You're making a liar out of me. Black and white heart, shot too many times to start. You're making a liar out of me. You're making a liar out of me. I try to move slow, so only I know. I try to move slow, so only I know. I try to move slow, so only I know, cause only I can know. One thing at a time, you'll see it eventually, and it always goes. The one thing that we know it, but never do we show it, cause we always go. Well, I grew up with a permanent nosebleed. I look up to tongue and
Well, you get the idea of how it sounds. I don't know what happened with this track. It looks like it's clipping very much, because I had to push this into the red zone because it doesn't matter. But this one looks like it's clipping a lot, which I don't know, but I will leave it like that. I don't care. It's just a little reverb I added in the end. This is the drums. kick drum, I didn't use any of the ControlHub stuff. It looks like I did in the end a little bit. Yeah, it looks like I'm driving it a little bit, just a little bit of bass and treble in the color. Let me bypass the ControlHub. Basically what I was saying is like adding a little bit of bass and treble, nothing crazy. Moving on to the snare. This is the real snare. I didn't get it because I did this song very fast. I didn't care that much in this style about the bleed. It wasn't that crazy for me. Like you can tell very much in the end, so I didn't care. For this snare, I used the Castle Recording Studios snare chain. It's basically the UA21808 for the color and then just a little bit of EQ. Nothing crazy. It really doesn't do a lot, but I like it. Cleans it a bit and adds a little bit of sheen to the snare top. I relied a lot on the samples, so I didn't like that much in the snare. Then moving on, I used the GGD snare. I think it's a parallel reference brass. Then I used auto align to make them fit together because it looks like they were a bit off. But this is about ControlHub, not about this. The snare bottom, I used it again. This is a machine preset. Thank you, machine, for this. Just a bottom snare preset. Let me again mute it, unmute it. You can really see what it's doing here. It's focusing it more in the high end, and if it sounds good, why mess with it? I really like how the preset sounds. In the machine presets, there's a lot of color and saturation to the presets. I love it. Basically, this is a color, the transformer color. I don't know where they modeled this from. SSL compression, and then using the little radiator from Soundtoys as well. Little bit of compression again. You can really tell this saturation module is amazing. We have toms. I used ControlHub on the main bus. Let me loop this. I really love some of the Mark Lewis presets. This one, Tom Boss Huge, is amazing for the boss. They don't sound bad at all, but when you load this up, look at the amount of compression. I love it. Here, the before and after. It gives a lot of attack and focuses a lot more in the low end part of the tom. Also makes a bit more of a scoop. They make it stand out a lot more in the mix. They don't sound bad without it, but with it sounds better. I tend to do this a lot with ControlHub. I use it like a finalizer. I put it on my buses, and when I'm finishing the tone, then moving on to overhead, I used also the Mark Lewis preset, Overheads High Problem Solver. I don't think this was very tough for the overheads, but this preset sounded good, so I ended up using it. See, it's not that bad, but this added a lot of high end. You can hear removing a lot of boxiness, some compression and some color again, a lot of tape, some treble boost. Then I just cleaned it up with some Soothe and then finish it with some Claro. I use this a lot over FabFilter lately. I don't think FabFilter sounds that good. It's very fast, but I'm starting to use this more and I'm very fast as well with this one. This would be at the end of the mixing stage where I found problem areas that I needed to fix. Moving on to the rooms. Will Pony preset pack. He has a lot of cool tones, especially if you go into the effects. There's a lot of distortion things that they are amazing, like parallel stuff, bass distortion, sub squeeze. I mean, this is amazing. Also in the machine one has some weird cool stuff as well. This one is just the Alan Smart C2 that he uses a lot. Compression, the Chandler limiter for the compression part, the console, the new console he has, and then this is the EQ that he's going for. And then cleaning up a bit, also adding a bit of 1.5K, interesting. I tend to remove that, and then adding some bottom end as well. As you can see, this always gets pushed in most of the presets, and maybe I even did it more. Let's see before and after of this module, because I think it's the main sound. It pushes more sound into the compression. That's why you can hear more of the snare. Then again, removing some high end because I thought the overheads were poking too much through the rooms. On the Tambourine, the machine percussion shimmer, it's also very good. I was just trying different stuff and then I ended up using this. Let me find a part where it sounds. I don't know, man. It just works. It works. It has a bit of reverb, some compression. I don't know. I love this plugin because of this. If you have some stuff that you don't... Hey, again, my camera just died. So I'm moving on from where I left with the Tambourine. Yeah, what I was saying is like, if you happen to not know what to use, just open it, go through some of the presets and just try different stuff out. Maybe it works. And this happened with this instance of the Tambourine. I just found this percussion. There's some of them, but I ended up using the percussion shimmer. Just press this one, press play, and it was, man, this is what I wanted to do. And that's it. This simple. On the Tambourine shots, I think it's the same. Yeah, I used it on the main Tambourine and I loved it. So then I did it again on the other. Then moving on to bass. I basically used the main DI with this is a copy of the Sansamp. I used the Dark Loss, one of my favorite plugins on bass, and used Auto Align to make them all three. This is the one that came with the tracks. Cool, but I didn't like it that much for this song, so I ended up using the other two. On this one, I have 3 instances of ControlHub, which is crazy, but I love stacking them. This is the first one, is the Castle Recording Studios, just the bass chain, which is going into a UA 2108, and then a distressor and some EQ. I think this one is doing nothing. Yeah, this is the chain they did, and I didn't touch it. Very subtle, but you can see that it adds a bit of low end to the bass and evens it out a bit. Very subtle, nothing crazy going there. Then I went with the machine again, bass rock. Nothing super crazy, but you can see that's a bit of mid-range and also a bit more compression and color with this. Don't be afraid, just stack up some of these ones. Then I used the Mark Lewis. I thought it was Will Putney. It's Mark Lewis. This one's the more dramatic. Again, using it a lot with the drive section. This is just the Purple MC77. I think this is a plugin. Then some color with this and some EQ as well. As I was saying, I really liked what I had, but I just loaded up this to finalize it more and getting a bit of color from their chains. I went through this and pressed this one, and I liked this one, what it was doing to my bass. This is what I was looking for. This is the more dramatic, but I love what it's doing. Controlling the mid-range, making it a bit scoop, and this makes it gel with the guitars a lot more and more focused on the mix. It has some compression as well, which helps even the dynamics. without it, it's all over the place, but when you put it in again, it's more even and flat, which helps a lot with, especially within the low end. I use Claro, just some finalizing stuff again. I never do this, but as I saw the machine parallel bass crunch, I thought I would try it. So this is what it sounds like. Nothing crazy, it's just a bit of low mid saturation. Well, it's what I'm hearing. Give it some more thickness. I literally sent the whole bass bus to here, and that's it. Very subtle, but I like to use this a lot. I did it also on the main mix compression. I like to do an instrumental with rhythm guitars, bass and drums, and I compress it, and then I send out to this parallel uncompressed and everything just straight clean from the buses, like kick, snare, and that gives a lot more thickness, at least to me. I don't know. It's a bit tricky because if you happen to have a lot of processing like on the drum bus, or if you have all the shells into one and then send out from the kick out of here to the parallel, you need to have those plugins here as well, even disabled, because of the latency. You can't use it like that. You need to put all the plugins that you have clipped, or if you have something like the Shep's parallel thing, you need to put it here as well, because if not, it will be completely out of phase and ruin everything. So it's a bit tricky, be careful with that. So then moving on to guitars, I used 2 ControlHub instances. This is what the guitar sounded like, a bit thin, a bit fizzy. I used this machine preset. Gives it a little bit of punch, a little bit more saturation as well. You can see here he used the black box, which is saturation from Plugin Alliance, and some transformer saturation as well. I like to drive more the guitars even more with this. Then I just the Neil Avron beefy rhythm guitar tone. I think it tames a bit more of the high-end stuff. You can hear a lot of tape saturation in here, smoothens the top end a bit. It just works. Then I used the Softtube console one that I have right here beside me. Just a little bit of drive. Again, I love the drive on this thing. And just a little bit of high-end bump, and then a roll off at 5K, because I think it was a bit too much. In the context of the whole mix, you can hear a lot of those high-end, so that's why I used it. Then my good friend Sooth, one of my favorite, if not my favorite plugin of all times. This is what it's removing. If you happen to have anything like a bit pokey, a bit like disgusting, just put this in and that's it. It's like a dynamic, I'm sure most of you know what it is, but it's like a dynamic EQ that when you put this like this, it emphasizes that part. But I usually put it up flat, like move this like this, and then let it do its thing, and just, it never hits 3, I think. It's like this. I move sharpness up a bit, or depending on the part. If it's cymbals, I like it to cranky this, but on guitars, I like a bit more broader bands, because if you use a lot of steep, narrow bands, it really screws the tone. And then move this to where it's not hitting 3. I think when it's more than 3, it's a bit too much for guitars. And then again, Claro, boosting some low end, low mids, I would say. I'm focusing it a bit more in the high end and the low end. I like to solo things, process them, and then put it in context and use Claro to focus them and make it work on the track. Moving on to the lead guitars, I used it on every lead guitar, I think. The same preset as the rhythm guitars. They sounded great on this as well. On this one, I also added a little bit of reverb room. I think this is basically the same. Yeah, literally the same. You can hear the saturation coming there. I love it. Then I group these things, all 4 tracks, into the same group and process them the same with this creamy preset. It focuses them more in the mid-range, 1K area, more or less, and removes a lot of top end and adds a little bit of chamber reverb as well. There's nothing much I can say, it's just put it and works. Moving on to vocals, final part. I really like some of the presets on ControlHub for vocals. As this one was already a bit compressed, I didn't use, see you can see it's not very dynamic. It is dynamic, but it's not super dynamic. There's some presets on the Mark Lewis thing. See this one. It's the chain that he uses normally when he's tracking vocals, and I like to use them when you get like an untreated or uncompressed or uneq'd vocal that someone recorded. You can just put this in before everything, so it's like the chain that Mark Lewis would use to track vocals through. Just scroll through these 4 and find the one that you like, and then from there you can do your usual stuff. It works a lot better this way. I love these presets, but this one, as it was already a bit compressed and treated, I just loaded this vocal main sing from Will Putney, and also it works amazing.
At a time, you'll see it eventually, and it always goes. One thing that we know,
see, without it, you miss a lot of high end that's here, 10K area. We're moving a bit of 200 and removing a bit of to the nasal stuff. Also here in the pre-EQ as well, removing some sibilants that usually lies around 5K, and that's it. Then a little bit of saturation and a lot of compression as well. Even if it's compressed, I like to compress things a lot, you will see right now.
At a time, you'll see it eventually, and
it pushes it forward in the mix.
At a time, you'll see it eventually, and it
makes it a lot more smooth and controlled.
At a time, you'll see it eventually, and it always goes.
Then I really just used the 1176 Bluey compression, the in-your-face vocal. I'll use it a lot. Then some DS and some effects.
At a time, you'll see it.
You can see it's 20 dB of gain reduction after all of the compression done here as well.
At a time, you'll see it eventually, and it always goes. One thing that we know.
Some DSR for the S's, and then on verses, I really love this Slapman White preset from CLA. I just have to back up because this is a 35 or 40, and it's a bit too much for me, so I just have to back
up. At a time, you'll see it eventually, and it always goes. One thing that we know it, but never do we show it, cause we all. One thing at a time, you'll see it.
You can hear how it makes it sound amazing.
One thing at a time, you'll see it eventually, and it always goes. One thing that.
And yeah, I think this is basically the same process I did on every single vocal. Let me see here. Yeah, as you can see, on every vocal, lead vocal, I copied around this instance of ControlHub on every single track, and then the CLA76 and the SR. And then on the buses, like in the main bus, I used another preset for the delay and reverb. Also on the back vocals as well, another one. And that's it. All vocals are the same.
We told all our friends that we were coming back again. You're making a liar out of me. You're making a liar out of me. Black and white heart, shocked too many times to start. You're making a liar out of me. You're making a liar out of me. I try to.
And that's it. This is how I mixed it. Well, I have some reverb stuff here as well. Reverb was a snare plate from Mark Lewis. Amazing reverbs. I used a lot another reverb. I think it's from Will Putney, yeah, but I don't know what's happening to it. It's clipping like crazy. I don't know. I'm using again a parallel drum bus. leaning a lot into the tape saturation and tube saturation, driving it like crazy, compressing it hard. Literally just send the drum bus and you're done. And also then a snare parallel. I think it's the thickener from Will Putney. This is what I was talking about. The effects, these kick distortion, snares distortion, tom distortion that he has, that he uses a lot. If you have seen his nail the mixes or anything, you can see he relies a lot on those compression and distortion things. So yeah, this is what it sounds like. You hear the character of the snare coming through and the ringing a bit more. In heavy mixes, you need a bit of that ring to make it sound more live, because if you kill it completely, it sounds lifeless. More in this kind of rock stuff, even more. So having this snare thickening, saturated thing, it's awesome to blend in. Again, driving it like crazy with the tape saturation. Then, moving on to the instrumental bus, I used again 2 ControlHub plugins. Let me see which one is first. The Mark Lewis. This is the instrumental only. The snare going like crazy, and I needed to control it. I've usually do like 1 dB 100 Hz with the Pultec style EQ. It brings a lot of body to the mix. I really love it. It lives almost all the time there. I used this one, Stereo Bus, Med Glue, EQ and Transformer. Preset from Mark Lewis. I think I tweaked this a bit because the compression was a bit more. This is your typical 30 millisecond attack and 100 millisecond release. SSL style compression. Camera died again. Then I went into the Will Putney preset pack and used the Mix EQ Rock. I think this is only, yeah, I only used like a bit of saturation and some of the EQ that he's using. A little bit of low end bump, 1.3 Hz at 100, just like I did before, so a bit more. You can see that it adds a little bit of high end as well. Then I used this parallel. This is what it sounds like. This is what I was talking about before. Just a clean sound, no compression, no EQ, no anything, just what it's coming out of these buses, kick, snare, toms, etc. And then tweaking the volume of the sends to make them work. Sorry, I'm sweating like crazy, it's super hot in Spain. In the whole bus, I only used one. But you can see it's adding a lot. I used this Master Loud Punchy EQ, basic EQ preset from Mark Lewis again. It's just color, it's a bit of saturation, a little bit of EQ, just polishing everything. No compression. I think I don't know if it was used or not. What it was used, it was the limiter, but I turned it off because I'm using another limiter later. And this is what it sounds like. It's crazy how just one plugin can do all of that stuff, because without it, it's missing a lot. And then you add it in and boom, it's live again. It sounds good without it, but when you add it in, it's, as I was saying, it comes back to life. You need to experiment a lot with distortion, because I'm using it a lot lately and it really brings out a lot of cool stuff if you use it correctly and makes it sound live again. I didn't cover a lot of stuff, but I covered all the ControlHub plugins that are used in this mix. This is what it sounds before. So yeah, you can see it's crazy, right? So yeah, if you want your songs to sound this crazy, just contact me. If you have any questions, just let me know and I will try to answer them quickly. And until next time, see you.